Mum, I'm pregnant again. Those 4 words shattered what was left of my sanity as I stood in my kitchen at 5:30 a.m., getting ready for my second job, while my 6 grandchildren slept upstairs. Children I'd been raising since birth, while my daughter lived in my basement and brought home random men every weekend. But this time, instead of crying or screaming or begging her to get her life together, I smiled and said, "Congratulations, sweetheart. We'll figure it out like we always do." What my daughter Lila didn't know was that I'd already figured it out, and my solution would destroy her world while saving 7 innocent children. Before I tell you how I legally stole my own grandchild and why my daughter now calls me a monster, please subscribe because this story isn't just about family betrayal. It's about what happens when love becomes slavery and when the only way to save children is to break their mother's heart forever. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 62 years old, and 6 months ago I committed what my daughter calls the most evil act a mother could do to her child. But every night when I tuck in my 6 grandchildren and rock my newly adopted daughter, yes, I legally adopted my own granddaughter, I know with absolute certainty that I finally did the right thing. Baby number 1, Marcus. I was 47, excited to be a grandmother. Just until I get back on my feet, Lila promised. That was 15 years ago. Baby number 2, Emma. Lila was 20, partying every weekend while I changed diapers and worked 2 jobs. I'm young, Mum. I need to live a little. Baby number 3, Sophia. I quit my career to babysit full-time. My retirement savings started disappearing. Baby number 4, Oliver. I was 57, developing high blood pressure from stress. Lila was posting Instagram photos, calling herself Blessed Mama of 4. Baby number 5, Isabella. I pawned my wedding ring to buy school clothes. Leela bought designer handbags. Baby number 6, Mia. I was 60, collapsing into bed after 16-hour days. Lila was bringing home different men every weekend. And now baby number 7 was coming. But here's what broke me completely. I found her bank statements. For 3 years, Lila had been collecting $1,400 monthly in government assistance meant for her children's food and care. While I was buying groceries with coupons and working myself to death, she was spending that money on spa treatments, expensive dinners, and shopping sprees. The same week I couldn't afford my blood pressure medication, she spent $300 at a spa. The same day I fed the kids peanut butter sandwiches because we had no grocery money, she had an $80 dinner at a steakhouse. She was stealing from her own children while I sacrificed everything to keep them alive. Within 3 months, I was doing everything. Night feedings because Lila was too exhausted. Diaper changes because Lila was still sore from delivery. Doctor appointments because Lila got anxious around medical people. By Marcus's first birthday, Lila was going out every weekend while I stayed home with the baby. She'd come home Sunday afternoon, hungover and defensive. "I need to have some fun, Mum. I'm 20 years old. I can't just be a mother 24/7. But she wasn't a mother at all. I was. Then came baby number 2. "Mum, I made a mistake," she sobbed, showing me the positive pregnancy test when Marcus was barely 18 months old. Ryan said he loved me, but when I told him about the baby, he blocked my number. It's okay, I said, even though my heart was breaking. We'll manage. We always do. Emma was born 11 months after Marcus, two babies under 2 years old, both completely dependent on me while Lila struggled with what she called postpartum depression, but what looked more like complete indifference to her children. I just don't feel the maternal connection, she'd say when I asked her to help with feeding or bathing. Some women aren't natural mothers, but I was a natural grandmother, apparently. Or maybe just a natural fool. Baby number 3 came when Emma was 14 months old. Sophia. Another accident, with another man who disappeared the moment responsibility arrived. Mom, I know this looks bad, Lila said, but Jake promised he'd stick around this time. He just needs to sort out some things with his ex-wife. Jake never sorted out anything. He vanished 2 weeks before Sophia was born, leaving behind only a text message. This is too much for me right now. By the time Sophia arrived, I'd quit my full-time job as a bank manager to become a full-time caregiver to 3 children under 3. My savings account was hemorrhaging money for formula, diapers, clothes, medical bills. Don't worry about money, Mum, Lila would say while scrolling through dating apps on her phone. I'll get a job once the kids are a little older. She never did. Baby number 4 was Oliver, born when I was 57, and already feeling the physical strain of chasing 3 toddlers while Lila spent her days sleeping until noon and her evenings getting ready for dates. This one's different, Mum, she insisted. Derek is older, more mature. He has a real job. He wants to be a father. Derek lasted exactly 6 weeks after Oliver's birth, before deciding he wasn't ready for the responsibility of 4 kids. 4 kids. He called them 4 kids, but Lila had never been responsible for even one of them for more than a few hours at a time. By this point, I was working 2 jobs, morning shift at a grocery store and evening shift cleaning offices, to support 4 children, while Lila contributed absolutely nothing except new mouths to feed. I'm looking for work, Mum, became her standard response when I asked about money. But it's hard to find something that works with my schedule. Her schedule consisted of sleeping, social media, and dating. The children's schedule consisted of depending entirely on their grandmother for every single need. Baby number 5 was Isabella, born when Oliver was barely 15 months old. The father this time was married to someone else and threatened to call the police if Lila ever contacted him again. I didn't know he was married, Mom, she cried. He told me he was divorced. I was 59 years old, caring for 5 children under 6, working 70 hours a week, and watching my health deteriorate from stress and exhaustion. I'd developed high blood pressure, chronic back pain, and a persistent cough I couldn't shake. But the children needed me. They called me Mama, because that's what I was to them. Lila was just the woman who lived in our basement and occasionally appeared for photos that she posted on social media with captions like, "Blessed with my beautiful babies," and "Motherhood is the greatest gift." The comments on those posts made me sick. "You're such an amazing mum. 5 kids and you still look incredible. Goals. How do you do it all?" If only they knew. If only they could see her stumbling home at 3 a.m. while I was already awake preparing bottles for the baby. If only they could see me at the emergency room at midnight with a sick toddler while she was out dancing. If only they could see me collapsing into bed at 11 p.m. after working 2 jobs and caring for 5 children all day, only to be woken up an hour later by crying babies. Baby number 6 was Mia, born when I was 60, and seriously considering what would happen to these children if I died from exhaustion. Mum, I know this is a lot, Lila said after Mia's birth, but this is definitely the last one. I'm going to get my tubes tied. She didn't get her tubes tied, but she did start bringing home different men every weekend. These are my friends, she'd say when the children asked who the strange men in our house were. Mama has friends too. But these weren't friends. They were hookups. Random men from dating apps who'd come over Saturday night and leave Sunday morning while 6 children ate breakfast and wondered why Mommy always had sleepovers with strangers. Some of these men were inappropriate around the children, too touchy, too familiar, too interested in bath time routines and bedtime stories. When I complained, Lila accused me of being paranoid and controlling. You can't keep me locked up in this house forever, Mum. I'm 34 years old. I deserve to have a social life. A social life, while I had no life at all except for caring for her children. I missed my own medical appointments because someone had to take little Marcus to soccer practice. I couldn't afford my blood pressure medication because we needed money for Emma's glasses. I wore the same winter coat for 5 years because the heating bill kept going up with 6 extra people in the house. Meanwhile, Lila posted Instagram photos from restaurants I could never afford to visit, wearing clothes I could never afford to buy, smiling into the camera with perfectly done makeup and hair, while I hadn't been to a salon in 3 years. The final straw came 6 months ago. I was in the kitchen at 5:30 a.m., making breakfast for 6 children and packing school lunches while simultaneously getting ready for my morning shift at the grocery store. Leela wandered upstairs in her pajamas, looking perfectly rested after her usual Saturday night out. Mum, she said casually, pouring herself coffee from the pot I'd made. I need to tell you something. I continued spreading peanut butter on sandwiches, too tired to look up. What is it, sweetheart? I'm pregnant again. The knife I was holding clattered to the counter. I turned to look at her, this 34-year-old woman who had given birth to 6 children but had never raised a single one. Pregnant? I whispered. Yeah, 7 weeks. I know it's not ideal timing, but dash. Who's the father? I interrupted. She shrugged. Some guy I met at a bar 3 months ago. He's not interested in being involved. Of course he wasn't. None of them ever were. I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, loved, supported, enabled for 15 years, and felt something inside me break permanently. 7, I said quietly. What? 7 children. You're going to have 7 children that I'll be responsible for while you continue living like a teenager. Mom, that's not fair. I helped dash. How? The word came out louder than I intended, and 3-year-old Mia started crying in her high chair. I automatically moved to comfort her while continuing to stare at Lila. How do you help? You don't work. You don't pay for anything. You don't get up with sick babies. You don't go to parent-teacher conferences. You don't even know the names of their teachers or doctors or friends. I'm their mother. No. I lifted Mia out of her high chair and held her close. I'm their mother. You're just the person who gave birth to them. Lila's face crumpled. Mom, that's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible truth to live. We stood there in my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd prepared thousands of meals for her children, where I'd comforted them through countless tears, where I'd celebrated every milestone while she was out living her life. And I realized that nothing was going to change. She would have this seventh baby. I would raise it like I'd raised the other six. She would continue posting photos and accepting praise for being a devoted mother while I worked myself to death, keeping her children alive and healthy and loved. But this time, I had a different plan. Okay, I said calmly, settling Mia back in her high chair. We'll figure it out. We always do. Lila's face brightened with relief. Really? You're not mad? Of course not, sweetheart. You're my daughter, and these children are my family. We'll make it work. She hugged me, probably the first physical affection she'd shown me in months. Thank you, Mum. I know this is hard, but I really think things are going to be different this time. Things were going to be different, just not in the way she expected. That afternoon, while the children napped and Lila went to meet friends for lunch, I made a phone call to a family law attorney. I need to discuss grandparent rights and emergency custody procedures, I told the receptionist. My daughter is having her seventh child, and I've been the sole caregiver for all of them. I need to know my legal options. The consultation was scheduled for the following week. I told Lila I had a doctor's appointment. Attorney Sarah Morrison was a woman in her 50s who specialized in family law and grandparent advocacy. She listened to my story without judgment, taking notes as I described 15 years of being the primary caregiver, while my daughter contributed nothing but genetic material. Do you have documentation of your caregiving role? She asked. I opened the folder I'd brought. Medical records listing me as emergency contact for all 6 children. School enrollment forms signed by me. Insurance papers with me as the responsible party. Bank statements showing I'd paid for everything from birth certificates to birthday parties. What about your daughter's living situation? She lives in my basement rent-free, has for 15 years, never paid utilities, groceries, or any household expenses. Employment history? Sporadic at best. She's never held a job for more than a few months since her first pregnancy. Financial contribution to the children's care? 0. I pay for everything. Sarah nodded grimly. And you mentioned she brings men around the children? Different men every weekend. Sometimes during the week. The children are confused and uncomfortable, but she says it's none of my business who she dates. Have any of these men been inappropriate with the children? I hesitated. There have been incidents that concerned me, but Lila dismisses my worries. Mrs. Moan. Carter, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish? I took a deep breath. I want to adopt this 7th baby before my daughter can neglect it like she's neglected the others. I want legal guardianship of all 7 children so they can't be taken away from the only parent they've ever known. And I want my daughter to understand that having babies isn't a hobby when you have no intention of raising them. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. What you're describing is essentially terminating your daughter's parental rights to 7 children. That's significant. more significant than allowing her to continue abandoning children she never wanted, while I sacrifice my health and financial security to clean up her mistakes. The court will need substantial evidence of abandonment and unfitness. I have 15 years of evidence. Over the next 6 months, while I played the role of supportive mother to Lila's pregnancy, Sarah and I built an airtight case. We documented Lila's complete absence from the children's daily lives, her lack of financial contribution, her pattern of bringing strangers around minor children, her history of leaving infants and toddlers in my care for days or weeks at a time. Most importantly, we documented my role as the children's primary caregiver, legal guardian, and financial supporter. The key, Sarah explained, is showing that you're not trying to steal children from a loving mother. You're trying to protect children who have been systematically abandoned by their biological mother. We gathered statements from the children's teachers who confirmed they'd never met Lila despite multiple requests for parent conferences. From their pediatricians, who listed me as the emergency contact and had never spoken to Lila about medical decisions. From neighbors, who confirmed that I was the only adult they'd ever seen caring for the children. The most damning evidence came from Lila herself. During her pregnancy, she frequently complained on social media about how exhausting it was being pregnant while caring for 6 children. But her posts revealed that she wasn't caring for anyone. Can't wait for this baby to arrive so Mum can take over and I can get my body back. Being pregnant is so hard when you have to supervise 6 kids all day. She didn't supervise them. She slept until noon while I got them ready for school. Mums of multiple kids, how do you find time for self-care? The responses were full of advice about asking family for help and hiring babysitters, luxuries that actual working mothers couldn't afford, but that Lila took for granted. The evidence of welfare fraud and financial neglect strengthened our case significantly. We now had concrete proof that Lila prioritized her own comfort over her children's basic needs. Your Honor, Sarah presented the bank statements and receipts to Judge Martinez. For 3 years, the defendant has been receiving over $1,400 monthly in government assistance intended for child support, nutrition, and care. Instead of using these funds for their intended purpose, she spent the money on personal luxuries, while the children's actual needs were met entirely by their grandmother. Lila's court-appointed attorney looked uncomfortable as he reviewed the financial records. These receipts show spa treatments, expensive meals, and luxury purchases made on the same days the children were eating donated food and wearing second-hand clothes, Sarah continued. This represents a systematic pattern of putting personal desires above child welfare. I was struggling, Lila protested weakly. I needed some relief from the stress of having 6 kids. You received substantial government assistance specifically to relieve that stress by providing for your children's needs, the judge replied firmly. Instead, you used taxpayer money for personal entertainment, while your mother went into debt, feeding and clothing the children you claimed to be supporting. The judge reviewed page after page of evidence, my bank statements showing grocery purchases, while Lila's showed restaurant bills, my receipts for children's clothes while hers showed designer purchases. This court finds clear evidence of welfare fraud and systematic neglect, Judge Martinez declared. Emergency custody granted immediately to Evelyn Carter, who has demonstrated she is the children's actual caregiver and support system. When Lila went into labor with baby Clara just days after this hearing, I was the only person she had left. The government assistance had been cut off pending investigation. Her friends had distanced themselves when the welfare fraud became public. I drove her to the hospital. I held her hand through contractions. I coached her breathing. I cut the umbilical cord when little Clara was born. A perfect, healthy baby girl who deserved so much better than the life her mother was prepared to give her. "She's beautiful," I whispered, holding my newest granddaughter for the first time. "I'm going to be such a good mum this time," Lila said drowsily from her hospital bed. "I've learned so much from the other 6. She hadn't learned anything, but I had. While Lila slept, I stepped into the hallway and called Sarah. "File the papers," I said quietly. "All of them." 3 days later, while Lila was still recovering at home and bonding with baby Clara, a social worker and a sheriff's deputy appeared at our door with court documents. "Lila Carter?" the social worker asked. "Yes." "We're here regarding an emergency custody petition filed on behalf of the minor children in this household." Lila's face went white. "What are you talking about?" "Your mother has petitioned the court for emergency custody of all 7 children, claiming abandonment and neglect." "That's insane," Lila screamed, looking at me with pure hatred. "Mum, what did you do?" "I protected my grandchildren," I said calmly. The next 6 weeks were a nightmare of court hearings, social worker visits, psychological evaluations, and legal proceedings. But Sarah had prepared me well. Every piece of evidence supported our case. Lila had no defense because there was no defense. She'd abandoned 7 children to my care while living a consequence-free life in my basement. The children themselves were interviewed by child psychologists. All 6, who were old enough to speak, confirmed that Mama Evelyn was their primary caregiver, and that Mommy Lila was more like a fun aunt who sometimes lived at their house. When Marcus, now 15, was asked who he considered his mother, he said, "Mama Evelyn raised me. She's been to every soccer game, every parent conference, every doctor visit. She taught me to tie my shoes and ride a bike. She helps with homework and grounds me when I'm bad. Leela is, I don't know. She lives here sometimes." The psychological evaluation of Lila revealed what I'd suspected for years. She suffered from severe emotional immaturity and showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder. She genuinely believed that giving birth made her a mother, regardless of her complete absence from the actual work of parenting. "I love my children," she insisted to the court-appointed psychologist. "Just because my mum helps out doesn't mean I'm not a good mother." But when asked to name the children's teachers, friends, favorite foods, or medical histories, she couldn't answer a single question. On a cold Tuesday morning in February, Judge Rebecca Martinez delivered her ruling. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, this court finds that Lila Carter has systematically abandoned her parental responsibilities to 7 minor children. The evidence shows a pattern of complete abdication of care, financial support, and emotional involvement spanning 15 years. Evelyn Carter has demonstrated continuous, dedicated care for these children and has served as their de facto parent in every meaningful way. Therefore, this court grants full legal custody and adoption rights of all 7 children to Evelyn Carter. Lila Carter's parental rights are hereby terminated. The gavel came down like thunder. Lila collapsed in sobs. You can't do this. They're my babies. But they weren't. They never had been. That evening, Lila appeared at my door for the last time. Please, Mum, she begged, tears streaming down her face. Don't do this. Give me another chance. I'll change. I'll be better. I stood in the doorway holding 8-month-old Clara, legally my daughter now, not my granddaughter, while 6 other children did homework and watched TV behind me. You had 15 years and 7 chances, I said quietly. You chose yourself every single time. But they're my blood. Blood doesn't make a mother, Lila. Showing up makes a mother. Sacrifice makes a mother. Love in action makes a mother. I looked down at the baby in my arms. You donated DNA. I did everything else. What am I supposed to do now? She sobbed. Learn to live without someone else cleaning up your mistakes. Get a job. Get therapy. Grow up. You're 34 years old. It's time to become an adult. I have nowhere to go. You have the same opportunities every other childless adult has. Figure it out. I closed the door and turned the lock. That was 6 months ago. Today, all 7 children are thriving in ways they never did when they lived in the chaos of Lila's irresponsibility. Marcus made honor roll for the first time. Emma is learning piano. Sophia started kindergarten with confidence instead of anxiety. Oliver is potty trained. Isabella is talking in full sentences. Mia is sleeping through the night. And baby Clara, my Clara, is healthy, happy, and loved by 6 siblings who understand that our family is built on commitment, not biology. I still work 2 jobs. I'm still tired. But I sleep better now because I'm not waiting for the next crisis, the next abandonment, the next time Lila will choose her own desires over her children's needs. People call me cruel for what I did. They say I should have given Lila more chances, more support, more understanding. But here's what they don't understand. I gave her 15 years of chances. I gave her $200,000 of support. I gave her unconditional love, while she gave her children conditional presence. At some point, protecting children becomes more important than protecting the feelings of the adult who created them. Lila texts me sometimes, usually late at night when she's drunk and feeling sorry for herself. I miss my babies. You stole my life. I'll never forgive you. I don't respond, because they were never her babies in any way that mattered. I didn't steal her life. I refused to continue sacrificing mine for her choices. And her forgiveness isn't something I need. The children ask about her sometimes. I tell them the truth in age-appropriate ways. Lila wasn't able to be the mother you needed, so I became your mother instead. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It just means love isn't enough if you're not willing to do the work. They seem to understand. Children are smarter than adults give them credit for. They know who shows up and who doesn't. They know who sacrifices and who takes. They know who earns the title mom and who just carries it. If you're watching this and thinking I'm a monster, I understand. Taking children from their biological mother sounds unthinkable. But if you're watching this and thinking someone needs to speak up for the grandparents who've become parents, The children who've been abandoned by biology but saved by love. The women who sacrificed their golden years to give children the stability their own parents couldn't provide. Then you understand why I did what I did. Family isn't about blood. It's about commitment. It's about showing up when it's hard, staying when it's thankless, and choosing love over convenience every single day. Some monsters eat children. Others feed them, clothe them, comfort them, and love them when no one else will. If that makes me a monster, then I'll wear that label proudly. Please like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. To every grandparent raising grandchildren, you're not alone, you're not selfish, and you're not wrong to demand better for the children you love. And to every adult who thinks having children is a right instead of a responsibility, children aren't accessories for your life. They're human beings who deserve parents who choose them every day, not just on the day they're born. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's selfishness. Sometimes protection looks like separation. And sometimes the greatest act of maternal love comes from someone who didn't give birth, but chose to be a mother anyway. 7 children deserved better than Lila could give them. Now they have it. And I'd do it again tomorrow. Last Sunday I lit a candle for Robert, who's been gone 10 years now. I whispered, "We raised our daughter together, but I had to raise her children alone. Forgive me for failing her, but I saved them." Then I went to the living room where all 7 children were laughing at cartoons together, and I thought, maybe love isn't blood. Maybe it's showing up, even when no one else will. Last week I was at the grocery store with all 7 children, helping them reach cereal boxes, calming Mia's tantrum, carrying Clara in her carrier. A woman watched me and smiled. "You're such a wonderful mother. How do you manage it all?" I looked at her, at my children, at the life I'd built from what Lila had abandoned. And I said, I stopped pretending their mother was actually their mother. If this story upset you, angered you, or scared you, hit that like button. If you know a grandmother raising someone else's children, share this story. And if you believe that love means showing up, not just showing off, subscribe. Because stories like this shouldn't be rare. They should be heard. To every grandparent sacrificing their golden years, you're not wrong, you're not selfish, and you're not alone. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling someone else's selfishness. Family isn't about blood. It's about commitment. And sometimes the greatest act of maternal love comes from someone who chose to be a mother, not someone who just happened to give birth.